Joan Murphy. I'm a member of the steering committee of Elders for Earth, and I want to welcome everybody to tonight's talk. It's the third in our series of talks connecting spirituality and the earth. And I'd like to welcome Kyra Jewell tonight, who's talking about one with the earth, falling in love with the earth. And Maureen, another member of
Maureen is going to attempt
an
introduction to an amazing woman that she loves very much.
Thank you.
Kyra Jewell is an ordained Dharma teacher in the lineage of Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, whose community is in Plum Village and around the globe. She grew up in a family in Atlanta, Georgia, who worked right beside Martin Luther King for civil rights. She has lived on 4 continents, and she's committing to helping others individually and collectively to transform suffering using kindness, compassion, insight, and inclusivity. She has a strong commitment to social, climate, and racial justice. And I am just honored that she's here with us tonight. So I offer her a virtual hug. Thank you. And I turn it over to Kyra Jewell. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maureen. So happy to be in this space with you and with each of you. I am just really grateful that Elders for Earth exists. It is such an important offering that you're making to our world. So a deep bow of gratitude and respect to all of you and everyone joining. I'd like to start by reading you a prayer from a book that I was reading recently called Earth Prayers. Maybe you know it. It's prayers from all over the earth, many different cultures. This is an Ashanti prayer, West African wisdom. So it says, "O God, creator of our land, our earth, the trees, the animals and humans, all is for your honor. The drums beat it out, and people sing about it, and they dance with noisy joy that you are the Lord. You also have pulled the other continents out of the sea. What a wonderful world you have made out of wet mud. And what beautiful women and men. We thank you for all the beauty of this earth. The grace of your creation is like a cool day between rainy seasons. We drink in your creation with our eyes. We listen to the birds' jubilee with our ears. How strong and good and sure your earth smells, and everything that grows there. Bless us, bless our land and people, bless our forests with mahogany, wawa, and cacao. Bless our fields with cassava and peanuts. Bless the waters that flow through our land. Fill them with fish and drive great schools of fish to our seacoast, so that the fishermen and in their unsteady boats do not need to go out too far. Be with us in our countries and in all Africa and in the whole world. Prepare us for the service that we should render." There's so much joy in that prayer, and it really touches me. So I'm coming from the Buddhist tradition, specifically from the Zen lineage of Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen tradition, and also from the Vipassana tradition of Theravada Buddhism. And I want to offer us first a way to connect with falling in love with the earth, seeing ourselves as one with the earth through a meditation, through embodied practices, and then offer some reflections, and then give you a chance to talk to each other in smaller groups about this, and then finish with some time for discussion in our larger group again if you have questions or things you want to share. So we all are bodies. We are bodies sitting here. We look like we're squares and just from our chest up, right? But we want to acknowledge that we are physical beings with full bodies sitting here. And so part of, I think, healing our relationship to our earth is being embodied, which is not always that much of a habit for many of us. I think we can be very much in our heads. So if you will join me in bringing a little bit of movement to your body to begin, you can do this seated or standing, however you prefer, but we're just going to shake our body. I'm all set up here with my computer, so I'm going to stay seated, but if you want to stand, I'll just invite you to shake out an arm. Just let an arm shake around. And shake out another arm. And then even if you're sitting, you can stretch out a leg and shake out a leg. And then shake out another leg. And then however, you might shake your face and make funny faces to get the muscles of your face. You can even make noises if you want to kind of give your voice a little bit of a shake. Stick out your tongue. And then let your whole body shake, however that might be for you. So yeah, you can roll your shoulders and move your hips. Great. So this is one of the practices we, I think, need in our toy box of practices that helps us handle and work with our grief around climate change and the anxiety and stress that it comes with. And there's another sequence that I'd like to share with you, which is for toning our vagal nerve. Our vagal nerve is one of the biggest, it is the biggest nerve in our body, from our brain down all the way into our digestive system. And it's the place that helps us know that we're safe. It's what communicates safety to our whole body and allows our body to function optimally. So we'll begin by massaging our ears from the top of the edge of your ears down to the lobe of your ears. We'll do that 2 more times. So we first hear if we're safe or not. That's where the information comes first through our ears. So we're listening for safety. Good. Then if you're wearing glasses, you can remove them. Next, we we look to know if we're safe. So we can give our eyes a bit of a rest. We'll just put our palms over the bones of our eyes, so not pressing on the eyeballs, just covering the eyes. You can rest your forehead in your palms if that feels good. We do so much on the screen these days with the pandemic. Just letting your eyes rest. Good. And then we'll bring our palms to our cheeks, to just cup our cheeks. You could maybe think of someone that you care about, or that you know has brought you a lot of love, support, that they're holding your cheeks with kindness. And just let this into your system, this feeling of being supported. Good. And then we bring our palms to our chest. So one hand covers our chest and the other hand covers that hand. Just feeling the supportive, kind presence of your hands over your heart center. Taking a few breaths. You could even say to yourself, I am safe. And then we'll move our palms down to our belly, just below the belly button. The same relationship, but over the belly button, just the abdomen just under the belly button. Feeling the support of your hands. Maybe even breathing into your hands, letting the breath go down into the belly. Resting. And finally, we will turn our palms upward like this and rest them on your thighs. This is the final part of the sequence, just taking in what happened, noticing if there's any shift in your body, in your mind, having taken a few moments to care for your own body, which is caring for the earth. Just noticing what's here for you. And in this position, or whatever position is comfortable for you, if you want to change your hands, your arms, your bodily position, feel free. And I invite you to connect with your breath. Just breathing normally. Feeling the flow of your in-breath and the flow of your out-breath. If some thought or some distraction arises, that's fine. As soon as you notice it, you can rest again in the awareness of your breath. Just the natural way your body gets breathed, that you don't have to do anything to make your breathing flow. And feel free to simply stay with this, noticing the in-breath, noticing the out-breath. Or you may like to play with letting your out-breath lengthen a little bit longer than your in-breath. So if it helps, you could just count how long your natural in-breath is, and then extend your out-breath for 2 counts longer than your in-breath. So if you breathe in 3 counts, like 3 seconds, see if you can let your out-breath be 5 seconds, 5 counts. No strain. If it's uncomfortable, please don't continue. Just go back to natural breathing. A natural in-breath, then just a slight lengthening of the exhale. Wonderful. So you can let that go unless you want to continue. So now I invite you to bring to mind a time from your childhood when you felt safe in a natural place, when you felt interested or curious, inspired by the natural world. Maybe it was a forest or a lake or animals, plants, insects, where you noticed the breeze or the sunlight through the leaves or even through your curtains. Just give yourself space to let images, sounds, tastes, smells come to mind of a time when you were young, a child, and you experienced beauty, surprise, the wonder of the earth. Maybe in the taste of wild blueberries or the call of the geese overhead, the warmth of a kitten. See if you can bring that memory to mind in as much detail and with as much vividness as you can. Notice how it feels to recall this memory now. And now bring to mind another time when you were a little older, a young adult, in your 20s or 30s, a time when you explored or learned something about the earth that awakened wonder in you. Perhaps holding a baby and hearing its even breathing, or going down into a cave, or seeing the waves crash over the cliffs. Recall that memory as clearly as you can, that experience of being connected to the natural world, to another's vitality, to your own vitality. Notice what arises in you as you give space to this memory. What's alive in you now? And finally, bringing to mind a time in your more mature adult life, so a more recent memory from the past few years, a time when you were in touch with beauty and wonder. Maybe the smell of a grandchild, a good smell, or the sound of water in a brook or a waterfall. Just a moment in time. Let yourself recall some moment where you broke out of your usual way of being caught up in your worries, in your plans. The moon shining through the clouds. Something that helped you feel connected to something powerful, larger than yourself. Let this memory fill you now and wash over you as it did then. Wild geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert, repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about your despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese high in the clean blue air are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Thank you for your practice. And before we move into the talk, to the reflections I'll offer, I invite you to share in the chat a few words, a phrase, any impressions that you'd like to share from the moments you revisited in your life. Peaceful wonder. Thank you. Bliss. Gratitude and awe. Calm. Grace, connection, awe. Peace, love, connection. A few special memories. The view of the sky from a plane, extraordinary. Safety, letting go, rest in beauty. Thank you. Feel free to share in the next little bit. A droplet of water connected to the ocean of love. Clear, cold water from an everlasting flowing spring. Wonderful. Yes, thank you. So, this poem from Mary Oliver, Wild Geese, is about remembering that we belong to the earth, seeing that we are one with the earth, not separate. The geese are announcing over and over our place in the family of things. So it's when we remember these moments that we've had in our life of connection, that we see we are part of the earth, we belong to this family. We're not separate. That's when we can experience falling in love with the earth. And I think this is really what is going to be necessary for us in what we're facing in this time of real challenge to our species that we've created for ourselves. As this is from Thich Nhat Hanh, who says, "Only when we've truly fallen back in love with the earth will our actions spring from reverence and the insight of our interconnectedness. Yet many of us have become alienated from the earth. We are lost, isolated, and lonely. We work too hard, our lives are too busy, and we are restless and distracted, losing ourselves in consumption. But the earth is always there for us, offering us everything we need for our nourishment and healing. The miraculous grain of corn, the refreshing stream, the fragrant forest, the majestic snow-capped mountain peak, and the joyful birdsong at dawn." He goes on to say, there's a revolution that needs to happen, and it starts from inside each one of us. We need to wake up and fall in love with the earth. Our love and admiration for the earth has the power to unite us and remove all boundaries, separation, and discrimination. We need more than new technology to protect the planet. We need real community and cooperation. Cherishing our precious earth, falling in love with the earth, is not an obligation, it's not a duty. It's a matter of personal and collective happiness and survival. That is the end of the quote. We cannot survive if we don't begin to see that we are the earth, and therefore fall in love with the earth. Yeah. So in order to love, we have to be there. We have to be present. We have to be here with our bodies and our minds, and with what's inside of us, with what's around us. And mindfulness, this slowing down, coming into presence that we just practiced together, it helps us to be fully here with the life inside of us and around us. Without that, we can't actually be with the earth, be with ourselves, if our minds are in some other place, in some other time. So it's something that this remembering times of connection is a powerful practice, because we can lose track of that. But we've probably all had experiences of connecting to something bigger, something larger. And so remembering can actually bring that same experience alive in this moment. We know that in neuroscience, that visualizing something is as powerful, sometimes even more powerful than actually doing it. So I remember when I was 8 or 9, I lived in Kenya. My father took me to Mombasa. He was at a meeting and I got to play outside in this kind of village area, and I climbed up this tree, and it was those big trees in East Africa that the trunks are like one tree already. They spread into trunks and they go horizontal for a long time before they go vertical. So I was lying down on this very big branch, and it was hot and humid, and the cicadas were really loud. And I remember being very content, lying there looking up at the sky, just feeling the solidity, the safety of the branch under me. And I really was still. And it felt like time stopped, that I just was part of that, not a visitor. That everything was okay in that moment, nothing was wrong, nothing was missing. That I knew just from the nature surrounding me that I belonged, that I was loved just as I am. So we each have these memories that we can tap into. We carry them in us, this knowing that we are a child of this planet, knowing that we belong, that we can feel connected to a place or to another species, that we're part of something bigger than us. So we can savor these experiences and let them teach us over and over, as the poem says, about our place in the family of things. And this is a very important piece to confronting what we have to deal with right now. That sounding the alarm bells, working from a place of fear about the climate, it sets off the amygdala, the place of fight, flight, freeze in our brains, the reptilian brain. And we don't have access to the best of ourselves when we're driven by the amygdala. It is being in touch with our love, our awe, our reverence, our deep inspiration. That is what can really be the fuel for the energy we're going to need in this time. So that's why he says it's a matter of survival, remembering, actually. We don't need to fall in love with the earth. We just need to remember that we are already in love with the earth, that the earth is deeply in love with us. So I had a chance, I teach teen retreats, teen mindfulness retreats, and I had a chance to take, with a few other adults, take about 10 or 15 teenagers on a 10-day trip in the California wilderness a few years ago. We slept out under the stars. It wasn't raining or very cold. We hiked during the day. We carried all of our food, all of our equipment. And I remember, so we would meditate in the mornings, we'd give a talk on mindfulness, we'd have sharings in groups, and then we'd hike most of the day. At night, we'd gather, share, tell stories. Sometimes we would lie in a circle with our heads in the circle, middle of the circle, our feet outward. We'd lie down at night and we'd just watch the stars, and we'd be so excited when someone would spot a shooting star. Did you see it? Did you see it? This is a very precious moment of falling in love, being deeply impacted, letting ourselves really be changed by our planet and all of her beauty and wonder. And one of the things we did also was every teen spent 24 hours in a solo retreat. So we found this, set up our base camp at the side of a lake, and we put all the teens in their own spot. They couldn't see or hear others, but they could let us know if they needed us, whistles and things like that. But they were alone for 24 hours. They had to spend the night on their own. We brought them food, brought them water. It was a very profound experience for a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old to be all alone in the wilderness for a whole day, a whole night, hearing sounds. They didn't know what the sounds were at night. And they said, that was one of the most powerful experiences of that 10 days in the wilderness. Falling in love with the ants, really noticing the ants in their little camp area. Or just learning through that process that the world can be trusted, that they could trust themselves. They had confidence. Oh, I can actually be okay. I can be okay with my own company. And also realizing they don't have to be in control, that they're not in control, that life can care for us. So there are powerful transformations that can come when we really take refuge in the earth like that, when we let the earth be our teacher, not having a lot of distractions. They had to give up their phones for those 10 days. So it was just them and the world around them. So another piece about falling in love with the earth, seeing ourselves as one with the earth, is, as someone, Mark, shared in the chat, thank you, I'm not part of the earth, I am earth. Yeah, so falling in love with the earth is also falling in love with each other. Environmental justice and racial justice, social justice, all of these things are connected. where is it that, you know, the most toxic chemicals and products are found? In communities where people are marginalized and vulnerable. Who is it that's suffering most now from all the climate changes brought on mostly by developed countries? Countries that are developing, countries that are poorer, that have less privilege economically, racially. So this understanding of interbeing, that this is because that is. You know, when we discriminate between human and other beings, we think we can live at others' expense. This ends up being very expensive. So it's similar with patriarchy, with white supremacy. When any culture or group oppresses another culture or group, if one gender or group decides it will live at the expense of another group, it always leads to the ultimate reduction in quality of life for everyone. This isn't so obvious yet. But like with this pandemic, if we don't help other countries really take care of their spikes in cases and new mutations happen, then our country can't be safe. Can't really pull through this time. So there's a fundamental ignorance at the root of our behavior that takes one group of people to be more human and other groups to be less human. And that is very much at the root of our destruction of our planet, is thinking that we are separate from our planet and thinking that we are separate from each other. So if we see other species as less than our own and as therefore dispensable, and the natural world, so-called inanimate things, as less than living beings, then they're dispensable. So in the Diamond Sutra of the Mahayana Buddhist tradition, there are 4 notions that we have to let go of in order to be really free and to live in accordance with reality. And those 4 notions, those 4 illusions, are self, that there's a separate self that exists, that's independent. You know, each of us is made up of our ancestors, our descendants, of all the food we've ever eaten, of all the air we've breathed, of all the water we've drunk. We don't have a separate self. If you take out the sun from me, I can't be here anymore. If you take out the rain from me, I can't be here anymore. So that's one notion we have to let go of, is this sense of a separate self. The second is the lifespan, that we were born on this date and we die at this date and that's it, that we only exist in that time. The Diamond Sutra and many Buddhist teachings help us see we existed before we were born. We existed in our parents, we existed in our grandparents, we existed in all the elements that made up our parents and grandparents, that make up our body. And when we die, when this body dies, we continue also. We continue in all the people that we've influenced and all the elements that we return to. That's still us. Our actual lifespan is limitless. That's the second notion, so self, lifespan. The third notion we have to let go of is the notion of a human being as separate from other species. What else is a human being but all the different species that humans evolved from? And who are we now except all the other species that we live and share this planet with? And then the fourth notion that we have to let go of in the Diamond Sutra is the notion of a living being. That there are beings that are living versus beings that are not living. So when we discriminate and see only beings that breathe or beings that divide, cells that divide as being alive, we're saying those beings are not fundamentally interconnected with the minerals that make up their being. So this is the first ecological text, you could say, one of the earliest ecological wisdoms. So when we release these four notions, that's a very powerful step towards ending our addiction to fossil fuels, this belief that we have the right to extract from nature as if it's our belonging, it's our material possession. It's these four notions, if we let go of them, they help us to end patriarchy, they help us to end racism. All these ways we have of acting that lead us to be like an abusive child to our Mother Earth, to use and harm her. So I'll just close by inviting us to reflect on how it is that we can focus on what is here and now. We are so fearful about the future when we think of what's happening to our climate. But the future is made of this moment. And if we can take care of the present, we can take care of the future. If we can live deeply in this moment, in love with Mother Earth, if we can recall and nourish these seeds in us daily, in ourselves, in each other, in the children, grandchildren, the young people that we are surrounded by, then we can do that in the future, which is only going to become more complex, more uncertain. So this is a survival practice. I had a chance to hear a talk of Paul Hawken. He edited the book Project Drawdown, which offers 100 solutions to real scientifically based solutions that will turn us around our current course of destruction. And he, first of all, talked about how collaborative that process was, that it was, he gathered a bunch of mainly women, mainly people of color, people not from privileged groups. And they all did research from many different countries around the world. They all researched, I'm going to contribute, these are the solutions I see in this country or in this sector that will really support taking carbon out of the atmosphere or not having more carbon be released. But what he said towards the end of his talk was, we're not going to solve this by acting out of urgency. And he was sharing he came to speak at a meditation group. So he was saying, I just took some notes from his last words. He says, a quality of practice in meditation is remarkably more effective than responding out of urgency. So he talked about this amygdala response where we feel anxiety. This is not what will help us. So he said every Democratic candidate, this was after the election early last year, has talked about future existential threat. He said, that's just in your mind. It's good science, but it's not a place to dwell. What regeneration says is if we're going to reverse climate crisis, we must pay attention to current human needs. And that if humanity isn't paying attention, it's because we aren't paying attention to humanity. So if people aren't getting that this is a real issue, it's because we're not actually paying attention to each other. We need to fall in love with each other to help everyone get this. It's not about urgency. Then he said, if the climate movement isn't directed toward the needs of the vulnerable, impoverished, and disenfranchised, and those suffering right now who will only suffer more, then we aren't serious about it. But this is not a top-down solution. So I will stop here with inviting us to really attend to what is happening in this moment as our path of transformation. And I'd like to invite us to go into groups to have some time to share for about 10 minutes. And there'll be groups of 4. And each person will have 2 minutes. So you might just start by introducing yourselves, sharing your names, where you're from. And then everyone will have 2 minutes to share about how have you experienced falling in love with the earth or being one with the earth. You could also share about what came up for you in the meditation that makes you feel love for the planet, love for the earth. And I'll just put these in the chat. You don't need to, if you want to talk about something else that feels more alive for you, that's perfectly fine. So we'll see each other back here in 10 minutes. And if you would prefer to journal about these, if for some reason you're not able to join in a group, that's fine. You can journal, and then in 10 minutes we'll come back and have time to share and have questions. So welcome back, everyone.
The hand there, Victoria. Yeah.
Thank you. I just was so exuberant just now in my breakout group. So thank you for having that be part of our experience today. It was just such a beautiful experience to share with someone in Massachusetts. I'm in California, someone's in Massachusetts, and another in Cork. And just this sense, that we all shared our experiences with nature, and it just was this beautiful, and to me, it connected with the beautiful meditation that you shared with us, Kyra, which is really magical because for me, it was a connection with some experiences in my life and various phases of my life, which I had forgotten until you sort of called them forth. But this sense of hope and of I love that the what you talked about just before we went in the breakout groups. Was it Hawken that said, don't get fixated on, worrying about, just stay in the present and stay mindful. And I just think that's such a beautiful thing, because it's so easy to get caught up in these crises that we have right now for our planet and our society. And I just love that approach to it. I think it's so wholesome and so healthy and so hopeful. So I just wanted to thank you for that, and say it's really, really been a beautiful experience. And I feel so much hope now, and a sense of joy in the possibilities of the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Lovely.
I don't see any other hands, Cara, but there's Catherine Sanborn has said that she had to leave early, but she said it was a great session and sorry to miss the rest.
Thank you, Joan. Yeah, Kathy?
Well, I asked this in the small group, and you were there, Kyra, of course, as well, and perhaps you answered it in all you said, but it is how to cope with that pain that we feel, that I feel in my body when I see trees cut down and weed killer being sprayed in public places, and just see the destruction of nature, how to live with that. Maybe you could say a little bit more about that.
Thank you for that. Because it's a very real thing when we do see ourselves as connected to the earth. When the earth suffers, we suffer more, right? Maybe part of disconnecting or not seeing ourselves as part of the earth is a bit of a protective mechanism to not feel that pain. So I really appreciate you bringing this up. You know, there's in Buddhist psychology, there's a text that explains all the different kinds of mental states that we can have. And I only learned this recently, a couple of years ago, that compassion is described in this, it's the Abhidhamma text, the Abhidharma. It's described as a joyful feeling in the face of suffering. Not because we don't really feel it, but because we really want to do something about it. So we can be in touch with suffering and feel if it's true compassion, you don't feel like you're drowning in it. So we want to get in touch with the suffering. We want to be able to feel it. But what's so pure and beautiful about compassion is our heart breaks open so that we take action. So that we, sometimes there isn't much action we can do, but we can raise awareness among other people. We can start talking to people. Well, what could we do in our community that might be helpful with this pesticide? And so, there's a way in which we can use that deep sensitivity that can be so painful to move us into response, and there's a phrase from Angelus Arian that says, action absorbs anxiety. When we see something that we really find difficult, if we can not take action just to get away from it, to make it stop, but to express our care, to express our love, to see that we're also part of what's spraying pesticides. We're part of what's cutting down trees. We're not separate from that either. So how do we act from this insight of interbeing? We're one with the tree being cut down, but we're one with the person cutting down the tree as well. And how do we act knowing that we're part of this web? We're not separate from it. Is that helpful, Kathy? And I wonder, is something arising that you feel could be useful in these situations you're mentioning?
Well, I suppose today I was thinking I'm going to pick up the phone and phone the council about the spraying. But I also have to think, have I enough head space for that at the moment because of other things going on in my life. But maybe the moment will come when I'll do that. And yeah, and certainly I've been talking about it to people. So maybe somebody with more head space might do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's the point that you've made that we're also one with the person cutting down the trees and the person spraying. That's worth thinking about too. Yeah.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, thanks.
I just a few things were cropping up for me. One is falling in love with the earth. I mean, nature isn't always good. You've hurricanes, volcanoes, and I'm not so sure that Mother Earth won't protect herself, from. And also our connection. I think we've lost our connection cosmically as well. I think there's more of a purpose there than. And another thing that strikes me is the problem of morality and conscience. I mean, morality changes. I could be in a different group and the morality would be different. I think what's critical for us is to find conscience, individual conscience. That's my views.
Thank you. What's your name? I didn't catch.
Patrick Kelly.
Patrick. Okay, thank you, Patrick. Yeah, thank you for sharing this. I think conscience is really a beautiful word because it is a word of our connectedness to what is. We don't feel a sense of conscience. I mean, conscience, right? When we have a twinge in our conscience, it's like a pain, a feeling of pain, like, oh, I did something wrong, right? We wouldn't feel that if we wouldn't feel connected to something, right? So I think it's very much what we're here about is looking to see how we are connected and how do we take responsibility. That's your mentioning of morality. How do we be with what we're seeing happening? How do we respond to that in an ethical way? You at the beginning, I'm trying to remember what you said at the beginning. Before you said this is also about our cosmic reality, but before you said that, I can't remember. I was going to say something to it, but now I can't remember the first thing you said.
Well, I don't. I mean, Mother Nature. I'm not sure is entirely benevolent.
Oh, yes, right. Not benevolent, and also that she can take care of herself. Right. Thank you. It's so true. It's so true, and it's not about falling in love only with the benign aspects of Mother Earth, but it's about falling into awe of the volcano, of the hurricane. Like, we're seeing more of this now because we haven't been respectful of our limits, of the Earth's limits, right? We're seeing weather patterns change and become more destructive because we're becoming more destructive. We haven't recognized, we haven't received the feedback that we're getting from the earth, and we need to stop. You know, the people are talking about the pandemic as a kind of feedback loop also, as maybe the earth's way of saying, you know, press pause, please, and slow down. But certainly it's not about, you know, seeing the earth as only, you know, peaceful and sweet and loving, but the earth is fierce, and the earth will survive whatever we do. The earth, you know, is not, we need to be worried about us, about the species that are, you know, 200 of them are going extinct every day. The earth will survive, but, you know, at what cost also? And how bad does it need to be? You know, we have some determination over that. We can live in a way that makes it less, you know, less damaging. It's already going to be very damaging, but we can do things still now that can make it less damaging. But for sure, the earth is gonna pull through. Yeah.
Is it okay to go back, ask you to go back for a few moments?
Sure.
I was very touched by what you said about compassion, particularly. And it reminded me of a lovely poem by Denise Levertov, which she called it City Psalm. And it's about walking in the midst of dreadful kind of noise and everything awful. And then she has this wonderful line, at least I find it wonderful anyway, that in the midst of it, she says that she's in touch with another grief, a gleam as of dew, an abode of mercy. I think she's talking about the mystery that some of us may call God, but another grief in the midst of all of this. And at the same time, it's a gleam as of dew, an abode of mercy. So thank you for connecting with that, for me, with that. Thank you, Yara.
Thank you, Donald. Beautiful. Joan, we have I think 2 questions in the chat. Shall I try to address the first one? We probably won't have time. So Ginny says it was a lovely sharing about nature being a conduit to universal connection to the earth. Could you also illuminate what you understand about how meditation and the connection to memory brings us into a different place of mind, heart, not the amygdala, so that we can share from this place of mind, love, not triggered by urgency? Yes, thanks, Ginny, for this. So you know, meditation isn't just something we do when we're seated with our eyes closed, for instance, as we were here in stillness, but we can be meditating as we walk. We can be meditating as we eat. We can be meditating as we talk to someone. And so basically it means being present, you know, breathing, knowing that we're breathing, walking, knowing that we're walking, that our mind and body are together. Because so often our body is here and our mind isn't. Our mind is somewhere else, caught up in our thinking. And so meditation helps us to live, mindfulness helps us to live from this place of being really present with all of our senses, right? So when we eat, we're tasting the tastes, we're seeing the colors, we're smelling the smells. And that's how we can respond fully in this moment. If we are, you know, eating an apple, but we're worrying about something else, we're not fully here. we're not fully able to meet this moment because we're not all of who we might be. We're just some of who we might be. So when we come into our body, we can sense if there's anxiety, we can sense if there's stress, we can sense if there's some kind of pressure about the future, and we can consciously let that go. We can release, we can relax. The practices I shared at the very beginning, I hope you'll see them as real things you can do if you don't already. Shaking out your body, that sequence of the vagal tone, toning the vagal nerve, breathing in and breathing out a little longer, those three things, those can help you drop into the body, be present with your own experience, be present with someone else, be present with your food, and then you're not under the control of the amygdala, and you're in this other place of, you know, receiving life as it is in this moment. And I think that's the only way we're gonna, you know, that's essential for us to be able to respond to this moment. I hope that was helpful, Ginny.
Thank you so much. That's very nice. Thank you.
Okay. Turn it back to you, Joan.
Yeah, I'm just going to check with Mary if we need to finish, or we've come to 8:30. So
Yes.
there's some other comments and queries.
Yeah, we are coming to the end. So I know, Cara, you may have a tight schedule, and we just want to respect that you've given us this hour and a half. And so yeah, I'll leave it to yourself and Joan maybe to wrap up.
Okay, thanks, Mary. So yeah, there are some more comments, Cara, but I just want to thank you on behalf of all of us here for a beautiful and inspiring and very consoling, I suppose, in a way that helped me to relax anyway, and helped me to return to my own body and to feel that support, the support of my own body as nature as well. So just thank you so much for being with us, and I'm sure we could make contact with you as well.
Yes,
through the internet.
I'll put my website in the chat. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you.
Joan, can I just interject a small thing here?
Yeah.
Just to thank everyone for being here, and Kyra Jewel, if you have time to hang back with us for just a couple minutes so we can thank you in person. I also want to mention that on the flyer that you received is Kyra Jewel's website, and she has a book that I'm really looking forward to that's listed there. And I'm certainly going to get it because it certainly sounds like it would help. And
I'll just say do you have the title there?
No, not right in front of me.
It's called We Were Made for These Times. Something like 10 ways of moving through times of change, disruption, and loss.
Yes. Thank you. I'm really looking forward to that book. Thank you. And I just think of this teaching as saying whatever action I take today is creating tomorrow. So it really helps me pay attention to what action, and trusting that action, even if it's really tiny, it's like picking up a plastic cap I see in the woods. I tell myself I'm lightening Mother Earth's burden by one plastic cap. So with that, I just want to say thank you very much, Carla. So lovely to be with you now. And thanks everyone for being here. I just wanted to mention her book. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen.